Welcome to the Slut Next Door podcast, where we dive deep into desire, unravel kinks and fetishes, and explore the deliciously naughty side of self-discovery. I'm Beatrix Vale, an erotic audio creator, and your guide to all things kinky and curious. So let's begin. So today, I'm breaking down the power of erotic language, the way a single phrase can make you tremble, how voice and wording can rewire your arousal, and why some words linger long after the file ends. Now, before we begin, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Give this episode a like if you're already tingling, and leave a comment telling me the one word or phrase that absolutely wrecks you. And if you want to experience more of my voice, you know where to find me. www.missbeatrix.com. You can find free files. You can even find a place where you can chat with me directly. So let's begin the episode. We're going to start with something that I think most people overlook. It's not just what I say, it's how your mind receives it. The brain is wired to respond to language emotionally, especially when it's spoken in a certain tone, in a rhythm that mimics the patterns of safety, seduction, or surrender. So when you hear my voice, slow, soft, with just enough control to make you ache, you're not just listening, you are reacting on a subconscious level. You're being trained. And the reason erotic language can be so powerful is because it bypasses your logical defenses. It taps into your nervous system, the part of your brain, like the part of you that doesn't think, it just feels. And that's why a single word like good boy or even pathetic or even a simple word like mine, those things can send a jolt through your body because it isn't just sexy, it's almost transformative within your mind. And erotic hypnosis in particular takes us even further. So through the repetition, tone, carefully chosen phrases, I can create new associations. So over time, you begin to crave certain words. Your body responds before your brain even catches up. And that's not an accident. It's the power of erotic conditioning. And let me tell you, once I found the words that work on you, I press that button a lot. And I can use words to build you up or even to break you down in the most delicious ways. Not all words wreck you the same. Some can disarm you with sweetness. Others can strip you bare with shame. And in my opinion, erotic language is like a weapon. And trust me when I say I know how to choose the blade. But let's talk about the different categories of words that undo you. And some of these may not apply to you. Some of you may hear some of these and think, okay, I fall in every category. That's the beauty. We're all unique and our brains work or are wired in different ways. But the first category is praise and affirmation. So for some of you, there's something more arousing than anything than being seen, cherished, approved of. So when I call you my good boy or whisper, you're doing so well for me, it just lights something deep inside of you. Praise, it can affirm your role and your purpose. And if you're submission starved, those words become like oxygen. Now, the next category is degradation and humiliation. These are for the dirty, dirty boys, the ones that need to hear how worthless they are, who ache to be called things like my pathetic little cum dump or my mindless pillow humper. Those words work because they echo your hidden shame and then twist it into arousal. So I'm not insulting you in those moments. I'm claiming you. And I always like to preach this. You do not have to yell or even speak in a heightened tone to really deliver hardcore humiliation. Even just, you know, saying the words in this kind of tone, which are pretty humiliating and degrading, it, in my opinion, stings even deeper. But the example is, you are such a pathetic virgin. It doesn't have to be yelled. It doesn't have to take on a bitchy tone for it to really cut deep. The next category is triggers and obedience language. So words like drop, kneel, listen, these are command words embedded in your mind through repetition, trance, and association. So with enough conditioning, these words trigger immediate response. They don't ask something of you. They override that. They override everything and become extremely commanding. And when I say them in the right tone, you obey without even thinking. Drop. And you've been conditioned to respond to that particular trigger. And then with that tone too, you're going to drop. Next category is tease, denial, and edging phrases. So some words are not meant to break you right away, like in the humiliation section. In this section, they build and they torment. So let's say I'm creating a JOI kind of file, a jerk off instruction file, and I say towards the end, almost, not yet. Do you really think you've earned it? These phrases make your desire spiral if you are the type of person that responds really well to tease and denial. But they create tension, delicious, desperate tension. And I decide when you get to release. That's the beauty of it. I control the reins and There are some of you, I would assume a lot of you, really like when a woman takes that on and enjoys it. The next category we're going to talk about are names, pet names, or any identity labels. So, names have so much power. And even if it's not your direct name, like your first name, even if it's things like little toy or mommy slut or cuck, or if it's your real first name whispered like a secret, all of these things just make, the experience more personal because they mark you. They tell you who you are to me. And that is where the real wreckage happens. So let's talk about hearing your name some more, especially in an erotic audio. It's incredibly intimate in a way nothing else is, because what it does is it cuts through the noise in your mind. And suddenly, it's not just a fantasy, it's you. It's you are in this erotic audio fantasy, not just as a bystander, but I've named you and claimed you within it. So when I whisper your name, when I moan it, command it, tease it, it really does flip a switch in your brain because you're not just listening anymore, you are in it. And your body responds because that fantasy feels more real, more personal, targeted. Like I'm reaching through the speaker and pulling you under just by saying your name. And that's why personalization or custom files are so powerful. It really binds the experience to your real identity. And then when I use your name over and over again, it becomes a trigger, a spell almost, a reminder that you belong to me. And I had to bring in these facts about, what happens in the brain when you hear your own name because I find it incredibly fascinating. So, when you hear your first name, it activates parts of your brain linked to self-awareness. And I could sit here and list these parts of your brain, these cortex that I don't even know how to say half of them. However, what I do know is that these parts of your brain light up regions that are deeply involved in self processing, identity, and consciousness. So when your name is said, it pulls you into the moment and makes it personal. And your brain shifts from more of a passive listening to this is about me. And your name acts as a built in additional spotlight. There's even some studies that have shown that even in a noisy room or in deep trance, your brain will prioritize your name. It's part of something called the cocktail party effect. And so, what this is a psychological phenomenon where your brain is able to focus on one specific stream of information. So, like, let's say you're at a party, lots of people are talking. Have you ever wondered how you're able to tune in to someone talking to you, having a conversation with you? How are you able to hear and tune into that one voice when there are, at least 20 other voices around you? Really is fascinating. But here's a twist. Let's say you're in deep conversation at this crowded party, and if someone across the room says your name, your brain perks up and notices it instantly. And why? Well, that's because your name is it's a word that is so essential to your identity. Your brain has been trained over your whole entire life to prioritize it. It's processed faster and more deeply than most other words. And as I'm talking about this, I can't help but think of my dog. Anytime I say her name, yeah, I can visibly see in her face and her eyes that she just perks up. It could be if I'm yelling, which is very rare, but even if I say it in a plain tone, she still like perks up like I have said the most important thing ever, you know. So it even reminds me of my dog. Her name is so essential to her little adorable brain. But in erotic hypnosis, this means using your name and that kind of file can really pierce through mental drift or resistance and deepen that focus instantly. And then when you hear your name spoken, especially in an emotionally charged tone, like seductively or in a very dominant way, it causes stronger emotional engagement than neutral language because the brain processes it as more meaningful. So, if you're able to experience, say, a hypnodom or another voice artist, command, moan, or whisper your name, it is going to hit harder. The emotional experience amplifies your arousal, your vulnerability, and your connection. So now that we've talked about the why, let's talk about the how. Because this was a bit challenging to plan this episode because I think that a lot of people are so different. So it's hard to give you examples that apply to each and every one of you because you're all going to respond to erotic language in different ways. So, what I did to help me paint this picture is I asked some of my loyal followers and fans of specific examples of how they've realized language can be such a powerful tool for them, especially when consuming erotic audio content. So I'm going to go through and tell you what I heard from a lot of them, and some of this is really fascinating. So one response, and I knew I would get this response because it's a very popular one, is the phrase, good boy. Now, I can totally relate to that because there was a point in time where I loved hearing the phrase, good girl. Now, if you say good girl to me today, I'm going to want to slap you. So don't ever use that. That was when I was a lot younger. But good boy is such a, it's I totally get it because I have spent my whole life really, and still today, being a people pleaser. I want to do a good job. I want to, reach the goals and I want someone to pat my back. So that becomes a very deep rooted need, I think, in most of us. And to hear that affirmation just is everything, especially in a erotically charged um, environment or experience. All right. So next thing I heard from one of my fans is this. He said he really loved this phrase. This is your sex. And I know that is actually a phrase I use a lot, especially when I'm doing erotic humiliation, where I'm pointing out how the listener is less than, in the bedroom. And what he says is this became like a confirmation or acceptance that normal sex is not an option anymore and that this is my new normal. And he says that it's a relief to hear me say the phrase, and it's not something he can argue against, and it's very erotic at the same time. I mean, that right there is a perfect definition of erotic humiliation, something that he consented to, wanting to hear and turning a little bit of shame into something very arousing and erotic. So, love that example. The next example, I'm going to read what he said. He said, one of them is definitely whenever you ask a question and say something along the lines of, because of me, because my will is your will, or something similar to that. Because basically, whenever you make it clear that what is happening to me is because of you, a powerful woman, has commanded me to or skillfully manipulated me into doing something. It always makes me realize how true my submission is in that moment. And I think that this really captures the power of erotic language, truly. Those very simple statements, because of me, I am your why, because my will is your will. It is making him feel things that are so much more deeper than how simple that language is, right? And then when that's delivered, sandwiched between some, magical hypno language, it's just beautiful. That's where the real magic happens. All right, next fan gave me this feedback. They said, the way you do erotic humiliation is what makes your style very unique, potent, and honestly addicting. The fine line you manage to walk between knocking me down and then building me back up all within a few minutes is always a roller coaster. Now, what he is saying is definitely about erotic language. There's not a specific phrase that he mentions, but I still think this is a great example because it shows how erotic language can knock him down, but then build him up at the same time. And I've heard before, like, how do you do what you do? How did you become good at whatever you want to call it, dirty talking or erotic audio? I want to say, well, I don't know, honestly, but I want to say that perhaps it's a little of me being empathetic, having empathy, because I'm always thinking about how do I want the listener to feel? When they're listening to the words I'm saying, I'm at the same time thinking, how do I want them to feel in this moment? What do I want them thinking? And that becomes the things that come out of my mouth. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for that. Maybe I should start a study, a scientific study. All right, let's move on to the next feedback I got. This fan says, good boy always stands out, or good beta bitch. But really, it's your overall wording that really gets to me. I can't remember exactly which files, but the fact that you can be so degrading in one breath and so loving and comforting in the next is really impactful. It's like a roller coaster that leaves me wanting more. It hurts, but it's okay. Just thinking about it is making me melt. I thought this was so cute. Um, it seems like I wish I could know what line he's talking about, so we had an example. Um, but it seems like this would be a good example of when I'm so degrading in one breath and so loving and comforting in the next. Um, this could be an example of how I'm punching a two punch right there, using some erotic language that's extremely humiliating and degrading, but then loving and comforting right next to it. That does become pretty potent when those two things can be delivered together. Yeah, I can see why he's melting. Let's move on to the next example that I got from one of my anonymous fans. Oh, and I should, before I read it, explain a couple things. So, this has been a long term fan that I honestly adore to pieces. They are a fan of Humiliation. And we started something, gosh, a year ago. It was a long time ago, where I had him, like when we interact, that we take away his pronouns. So instead of saying you or he, or when he's talking, instead of saying I or me, he says slut. So, and never uses pronouns. And that'll make sense in a minute whenever I read what he said. And then the other humiliating thing that just became fun one day is I think I said, you're not even deserving of calling me mommy. You're going to call me daddy, just because that's even more humiliating. So let me read his response. For the thing you posted, daddy, honestly, anytime you degrade this slut and call it bitch or fuck toy or whatever else, like for slut, it's tone that just makes it crumble. Not just words, but those words do it for slut. So you can see he is calling himself it, removing any type of pronoun like the good fuck toy he is. um, no, but honestly, I heard this a lot. I heard a lot of guys come back and say, I can't think of any specific language, but what I can tell you is tone really means a lot. Um, I think I think that is definitely something that, because anyone can sit here and say in a monotone voice, right? Let's see if I can try it. Anyone can go to a mic and say, you're such a slut. Good boy. You're turning into my fuck puppet. Like that, anyone can talk like that, right? It is the way you deliver these words, like those are really hot words. But if you don't use a commanding tone, like you're going to be my fuck puppet, or that can even go softly and I could say, you're going to become my fuck puppet, aren't you? It's it's the tone, it's how you deliver it. I definitely feel like, yes, language is extremely powerful, but it's also in the style, the way the language is delivered that really packs a punch. All right. Here's another response I got from an anonymous fan. He says, I am new to a lot of this, but recently one that stands out is I am your why. And when you talk about penetrating our mind, as much as the words hit, it's also your tone. When your tone goes from sultry or sensual to building up to more forceful, that does something. This guy really just summed up what I just said before I read his. And, it's not just the language, it's how you deliver it. And also why I would I would hope that most voice actors or actresses that we've actually probably seen it. I remember seeing videos of celebrities doing characters for cartoons, and I can remember them making weird faces when they were talking and moving around. I literally do that. If I'm saying, I am your why, like my face changed. I'm actually talking into the mic like I'm getting into your face in an argument because I don't know, there really is something to how you deliver the words instead of something boring like, I am your why, where my face didn't change. I just simply said the words. Let's look at another example from one of my good boys. He says, there is one paragraph that just hit like a truck from a custom audio you did. The quote he leaves is this: here's the best part, Cuck. Every time he slams into me, you fucking feel it. Every single thrust, like my cunt is milking your caged cock. Phantom squeezes, coaxing that pathetic dribble of pre-cum. You'll leak into your cage like a broken faucet until even denial feels like heaven. And don't forget, it just gets better and better because one day I'll snap my fingers and you'll come hands-free. You'll be in the corner convulsing and shaking, so helpless. And then he mentions some honorable mentions. He says, I'll reshape your arousal, your sexuality, your entire fucking cock until the thought of me with another man hits you like the best sex you've ever imagined. You'll feel those phantom grips, like my pussy clenching around your cock, even though it's not yours anymore. It's conditioning at its finest. You thought you could resist, huh? Fuck that. When I scream his name, you choke on yours. Wow, he really did give some great examples from that file. Just so you know, that file I just released last week, I think, called Cuckold Trap HFO training. Highly, highly suggest that file if you are a fan of Cuckold. Wow, yeah, really reading through some of that, I'm thinking, yeah, that was pretty fucking brilliant, Beatrix. Great job on that. What I really, really love personally is that when I scream his name, you choke on yours. We've got some cuckold language in there and then some degrading, using the word choke. Um, you know, th- just a really clever way to communicate to make someone, the listener, feel like he wants to feel in that moment, helpless. I remember specifically when this gentleman requested this file, he wanted the girlfriend to give a tone like it was like fuck around and find out. They really wanted to hit on that. So that's the kind of energy I brought. Fuck around and find out, bitch. Um, I can also recognize some hypnotic language I really like to use a lot in a variety of files, even not degrading files. Like Words like squeezing and dribble. In the very first part of his example, I can see those words used more than once. I even said like a broken faucet. Any time where language can also kind of stimulate the visual side of your thinking. So, like with metaphors or similes, leaking like a faucet. Yeah, those things I think really work really fucking beautifully. And while those phrases may not be for you if you're not into cuckold or, feeling degraded, you can see that he wanted to feel that way through this file. He said, these things hit me like a truck. And so that's the power of erotic language. Being able to make someone feel like they've been hit by a truck just by words. It's really amazing. And why I love my job. Like making erotic audios is I didn't know it was my dream until I started doing it. um, I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast, but I started all of this doing phone sex and didn't realize that I had a nice voice, really had no clue. And then I started playing around with audios and I thought, wait a minute, this is fucking fun. For one, I get to dirty talk like with freedom. And what I mean by that is I'm not live on the phone with someone. I'm not having to stop and think about what they're going to say or give them a chance to speak. I actually think I was probably talk too much as a phone sex operator because I would just want to I wish I could tell all the people just shut the fuck up and let me talk dirty because I have some things to say. I have some things I want to paint for you. But there's a lot of people that's not what phone sex is for them. I think for a lot of people it's them saying the things out loud too. But anyway, when I really started doing audio, I worked my hardest to not have to depend on phone sex anymore. And I'm definitely there now. I just prefer, I love telling a story. I love being creative. And I love, like I said, I'm a people pleaser, essentially, even as a femdom. If you really think about it, when you're in a more dominant role, sometimes it does feel as much as this doesn't make sense that you are servicing the other person because you're playing in their playground. You are doing all the things to make sure they are satisfied in their submission in a way. Um, Even though, there's definitely elements of control and dominance, but a lot of it is being within someone else's fantasy and desires. But that's a really sweet spot for me though, because I love when other people are happy. I love being the reason someone's happy. I love turning people on. I love saying kinky, sexy, perverted things. It just audio what was my dream job and I didn't even know it. So I want to personally thank all you good boys that took the time to respond and give me some quotes and your thoughts on erotic language. Thank you so much for sending those in. But I hope that this podcast episode has proven that words are a lot more than just sounds. They are tools, triggers, weapons, even. And when chosen with precision, they can seduce, humiliate, train, or completely unravel you. The right phrase, spoken in the right tone, can bypass your thoughts and your own body. They can make you hard, wet, obedient, or broken in the most beautiful way. And the truth is, once I've found the words that work on you, I never stop using them. So if today's episode stirred something in you, if you're replaying a certain phrase in your head, feeling that familiar ache start to bloom, I want to hear from you. Tell me, what's a word, phrase, or line I've used that's wrecked you? You can drop it in the comments, send me a DM, or message me on Loyal Fans. But always remember this. I'm not just here to make you feel good. I'm here to make sure you never, ever forget who made you feel this way. Until next time, remember that once my words touch you, there's no going back. And that's a wrap for this episode of The Slut Next Door, where we dive deep into the raw, unapologetic truths of human desire. If you loved what you heard today, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a juicy moment. Want to connect with me outside the podcast? Click the link in my bio, where you can find lots of juicy content and options. Until next time, I'm Beatrix Vale, your Slut Next Door, and I'll see you in the next episode.